everyone, here we are again with a new PDF pattern and sewing tutorial. In this one I have decided to release together as a basic pack the most used bustiers on fashion industry, the straight and sweetheart neckline. You can use them to create an infinite tops and dresses as well, since they are basic patterns. In this tutorial I am using the sweetheart shape version, so let's get started. Cut all the pieces following the Hazel Bustier Sewing pattern. Cut the main fabric and the lining. If you're using a non-transparent main fabric, then you need to apply interfacing to the pieces. But if you are using a transparent main fabric, as in my case, then you must use a corset mesh to reinforce the delicate fabric. For the lining, here I'm using a lightweight silk satin. Pin together the pieces. First, pin the side front to the center front, then the side back, and the last the center back. Sew in 1 cm seam allowance, and then follow the same steps for the lining. Now it's time to create the channeling for the bones. So all you need to do in this case is to sew a straight seam about 8 to 9 millimeters from the main seam, and just make sure you are sewing on the seam allowance. Now pin together the main fabric with the lining, placing right side to right side, and sew in 1 cm seam allowance on the top. While having the bustier on the wrong side, make a little cut on the seam allowance on the center front to make some ease for the sweetheart shape. Cut near the seam but without cutting the stitch. Be careful. Turn the bustier on the right side and open flat and make a seam over the lining and the seam allowance in a distance of 3 mm from the main seam. The reason for this seam is to prevent the lining from showing outside while wearing the top. Now press the seam, but be careful with the heat. If you're using delicate fabric, I suggest to use a protective cloth. Now insert the bones on the channeling, making sure to cut them 1 cm shorter to leave space for the seam on the bottom. Now put together right side to right side the main fabric with the lining and pin the center back, then sew in 1 cm seam allowance. For this bustier, I am using grommets. If you decide to use loops instead for the closer, then I suggest you watch my Bella bustier tutorial. Turn over the bustier on the right side and then make a seam for the channeling about 1 cm away from the center back to leave space for the grommets. Then make another seam 8 to 9 mm away from the previous one and insert the bone between these two seams. Now it's time to close the bottom of the bustier by sewing a bias. For the bias, cut a strip of fabric 5 centimeters wide and 2 centimeters longer than the waist of the size you are sewing. Place it right side to right side with the bustier and sew in 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now turn on the inside the bustier and fold the bias as shown on the video and pin it all over and then sew with a straight stitch. Insert the grommets and the bustier is finished. Hope you like this tutorial, and if you have any question, comment on the section below. My Eileen Bustier and Bella Bustier are already bestsellers, and I want to thank you all and wish you will be satisfied with this pattern too. I made it with so much love and wish you the best and see you on the next tutorial. Bye!